I'm Tim Holmes. Welcome to Build a Book. Today, we're going to talk about building a children's picture book, from the beginnings of having your ideas to your very first draft. The way we'll discuss that is we'll first talk about gathering your ideas and bringing all those juicy details together. Then we'll talk about how to organize those ideas so that they'll fit properly inside a children's picture book. We'll even toss out a few tips to focus your ideas and your writing. And we'll even talk about how to add your very own art in so many different mediums to your very own book. Let's get started. Where do you get your ideas to begin with is the question I get asked the most. And quite frankly, they come from so many different places. But if you already have a great idea or a character in mind or a really cool place, you're already ahead of the game. Sometimes, though, you need an extra little push. Sometimes you just want to get the creative juices flowing and write a story that isn't necessarily close to your heart, but it gets the juices flowing and gets you ready to write the story you do want to write. And for those situations, I love to use a story starter. So these story starters are something that are part of my Start a Story Young Writers Workshop. And we work with groups of children, and all the children will vote for their favorite ideas, and everybody shares their ideas, and we end up building a children's story in a very short period of time together as a group. Now, every workshop will begin with me presenting two different story starters. And there's an image and a sentence down below. Something like this, where we have an image of a guinea pig next to a very tall tree. And at the bottom it says, the guinea pig knew she had to climb the tree if she was going to see it. She just didn't know how. So, lots of questions. The guinea pig needs to climb the tree to see it. What's it? And she just didn't know how. Yeah, didn't know how to climb the tree because guinea pigs aren't known for their climbing skills. And so lots of questions to be answered, including even what the guinea pig's name is. And so I will take children through these different ideas and these different conversations to get them where they're going during Start a Story Young Writers Workshop. And so that's what we're going to do a little bit today. I want to show you the general format for how we ask these questions and how to get you, whatever your idea may be, get it a little further down the road so we can get your story out. Now, if you need that little push and you need to get some more story starters, I would definitely check out timholmes.com, and you can click on the workshop tab. And in there, you'll see a section about celebrating the stories that were created at Start a Story Young Writers Workshop. If you click on the Celebrate section, you'll see a huge list of all the more than 70 different workshops that we've done. And on each one, you'll be able to click on the image and check out the story starter that began that particular story. So, lots of options for you to investigate there. But let's pretend we have an idea. Let's talk about how we bring that idea and we expand upon it and get it into a full story. Now, I always like to start at the beginning. This is my method. It's not the way, it's not the only way stories are written. It's not the only way children's picture books are written. It's just happens to be the way I put it together. So, we start at our beginning. And since I'm a huge fan of Lego, I've got Lego to help us figure this out. Right? So, we have our beginning. In our beginning, we've got a character. Well, who is our character? What's their name? What's their job? Are they maybe they don't have a job. Maybe they're just the grumpiest guinea pig. We don't know. So here is our first bit. The first bit we need to add to our beginning is, who is our character? We need to answer that question. The second part ends up being, where does our story begin? What location are we in? Are we on planet Earth? Are we somewhere else? We've got to figure that out. Where does our story begin? And that is another piece to our beginning. Now, what is the problem that our character has? Every story revolves around a character or a series of characters having a problem and trying to fix it. So, what is the problem that your character is having? Yet another piece to our beginning. And finally, for our beginning, the last thing we really want to question deeply as we build these ideas and we put them together in our story is, What's the plan to fix the problem? Now, that plan may change throughout the story as we discover certain things don't work, but in the beginning of our story, what's our character's plan? Or maybe the character has a friend who has a plan. What's the plan to fix the problem? And that is our beginning. When I'm building a story, I find it a whole lot easier to, once I have my beginning, to move directly to the ending. And doing so allows me to know where I began and where I'm headed. When I figure those two things out, just like a GPS or Siri when we're trying to figure out directions, it makes it a whole lot easier to build the middle of our story if we know the beginning and destination. So here we are at our ending. Now, for our ending, we've got to figure out, how does the problem finally get fixed? Does it follow through from the original plan? Usually not. Usually it's a bit of a surprise, or it's something that's developed throughout the telling of the story. But we need to answer in our heads at the end of our story what is really going to be the way that the problem gets fixed. That is the first part of our ending. Now, who does the fixing? Someone's got to do it. Is it our character that finally finds a way, or has he found or she found some help along the way and someone else has come to the rescue and fixed the problem? So who does the fixing? That's the next part of our ending. And how does our character feel? Are they really happy about the way things have turned out? Are they just sort of okay with the way things have turned out? Maybe things didn't end to their benefit. We don't know. That's going to be your story to tell. So we need to answer, how does our character feel at the end of our story? Now, the last piece of the puzzle for the ending of our story is, how do they celebrate? Usually, especially in a children's picture book, we have a happy ending to the story. So we do think the problem is going to get solved. We do think our character is going to feel pretty good about this ending, or at least so-so. But how do they celebrate? Do they have a big party? Do they win a big prize? Do they share in the celebration with a large group of friends or strangers? How does our character celebrate the ending of our story? That is our ending. Now that we have our beginning and our ending, it's much simpler to build the middle of our story, because just like the steps from the lower level of your house to the upper level of your house, just like working through a map from our place where we're leaving to our destination, it makes it so much simpler. And what makes it even better is something that I sort of discovered as I began writing my stories that were originally bedtime stories and trying to get them into a book format, something we could produce and publish and have other people read. I wanted to do it correctly. So I did a lot of research. I went to libraries, I went to book fairs, I went to bookstores, and I read as many different picture books as I could find, and I did find a little bit of a pattern. And what I call it, and I don't know if it's a real thing, but what I call it is the rule of three. And the rule of three is this. If you're going to have multiple characters in a story and they go on an adventure together as a group of friends, usually there are three of them. If the character or characters in your story need to go collect something, maybe they're going shopping, maybe they're on a giant adventure and they need to get so many magical items, usually there are 3 items on that list. Or if your characters need to overcome some challenges, usually there are 3 major challenges to overcome before they come to a happy conclusion in the story. And so for the middle of our story, we still have some questions to answer. But we're going to do that 3 times. And here's what I mean. When we get to the middle of our story, we're going to try to fix the problem. We're going to try one way to fix the problem. So there we are. What is that one way we're going to try? We're going to have our first attempt to try to fix the problem. What is it? And because it's not the ending of our story, they can't succeed, so that attempt must fail. But why does it fail? How does it fail? That's the next thing we need to answer. Then, where Does this attempt even take place? Is it in the same location as the beginning, or have we traveled somewhere else? So where does our first attempt take place? Then, are there other characters involved or not? Is it just our character on a lonely adventure, or have they run into somebody, another character that we can have make silly voices with in our story? But is that character helpful or unhelpful? So that's the next part we need to figure out. Are there other characters that get involved and are either helpful or unhelpful? And that is the middle of our story. And what you have to do is you have to have a first attempt to fix the problem. And you have to figure out how we're going to try to fix it. We're going to have to figure out why or how it fails. We're going to have to figure out where it even takes place and if there are other characters involved. And we do that once, twice, and 3 times. And all of a sudden, we have a middle of our story. Now, you'll remember that we also had a beginning. And so our beginning goes on like that. And our ending goes on like that. And all of a sudden, you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You've got yourself a story. Now we're going to talk about taking those ideas that we gathered and organizing them so that they'll fit properly inside a children's picture book. Now, in general, the way I try to organize my children's picture books, and this is a general rule, it's a template. I personally will bend or break this if I feel it's the right choice to tell the story in the proper way. But I begin with this attempt and I grow from there. So generally speaking, my beginning, the part where we introduce our character, where our character is, what the character's problem is, and the plan to fix that problem, that all takes place in the first 1 to 3 pages of my children's picture book. Then in the middle, you'll remember we used the rule of 3. And so we had that rule of 3 where we had an attempt to fix the problem, and then it would go horribly wrong. It wouldn't work out. It would fail. And so using that pattern, you're generally going to have 3 to 6 pages be the middle of your story. And so generally you'll have those 6 pages. You'll have 1 page where the attempt takes place to fix the problem and the failure or how it goes wrong on the next page. And you go back and forth 3 times, creating 6 pages. Then in our ending, you're going to have another 3 pages, 1 to 3 pages. Depends on how much detail you want to get into. But in the ending, you'll remember we've got to figure out how the problem gets fixed, who actually does it, how does our character feel about it, and how do they celebrate the successful conclusion to the story. So that's a lot of talking. I'm all about the showing. So I want to show you what I do. I take 7 pieces of blank paper and I fold them in half and I make my own little book. And I staple them on the side just to make sure nothing falls out and gets out of order at all. And I put my draft copy of a book in a book, just like I did when I was 7. This is a great way to get yourself really focused and organized on where your ideas will land on the page. We have so many great ideas, but where are they going to fit inside an actual book? And so I'll walk you through this book. So on the front, maybe you have a title, maybe you don't, but you can put it there if you like. If you have an idea what the cover art might look like, or maybe just a great picture of your main character, great place to put it for now. Remember, this isn't your final book. This is just the test book to let you play around with the right places to put the correct words. So we've got our title and our cover art. We'll flip through here and we've got page number 1. And it involves our beginning, where we introduce our character. Who is our character? The grumpiest guinea pig? Or maybe he's a flying guinea pig. Maybe he's a pilot. Don't know. We introduce our character and where our character is. It's great to give that immediate impression as to where our story is going to take place. Is it someone in some place that I know? Is it someplace the readers know? Is it a magical place? It's a great first page to have so we know who we're dealing with and where they're happening. It gives us a general idea about the rules that are going to take place in the story. Page number 2, also part of our beginning. What's the problem? What's wrong? What isn't working out for our character? What is our story going to be about? And we flip over to page 3. Now, page 3, this is where we come up with the plan to fix the problem. So, we got a character, we're somewhere, we have a problem. What's the plan to fix it? That's our beginning. 3 pages. And then we go to page 4. Now, on page 4, we get to the very start of our middle. Does that make sense? It's the very first page of the middle of our story where we are going to try to fix the problem. This is our attempt number 1 to fix the problem. So where are we? Are we in the same location, or have we traveled somewhere to try and fix the problem? And are there other characters involved? That's it. Page 5 ends up being an attempt to fix it. It fails. So attempt number 1 has failed. Why has it failed? How has it failed? That's what happens on page 5. On page 6, that didn't work out. Attempt number 1 didn't work out. We're going to try again. We got a different idea. We're going to try to fix the problem again. But where are we this time? Are we somewhere different? Are we in the same place? We don't know. It's your choice. And are there other new characters involved? Or maybe the character from the first attempt followed us, and we're now with the guinea pig. Maybe they got a sidekick now. I don't know. That's your choice. But whatever it was, attempt number 2 has failed. So why did it fail? How did it fail? That's what takes place in the middle of our story on page 7. And then our third and final attempt to fix the problem, but it fails as well. Oh no. Now, where does that happen? And are there other characters involved? You'll notice a pattern here, right? And then on page 9, that third attempt, it has failed as well. But why did this one fail? And how? Then on the 10th page of our story is sort of the start of the end, if that makes sense. The problem, it gets fixed. The problem is finally fixed on page 10. So who fixed it? And how did they do it? We got to know in case we have that problem someday. And on page 11, how does your character feel about that? How does the character feel that the problem is finally solved? How do they feel that someone else helped them? Or maybe, how do they feel that they did it all by themselves? We've got to know the answer to that. And the best part is, how do they celebrate solving that problem? Whatever problem they began with has now been solved, whether by themselves or with a friend, after trying so hard 3 different times. How do they celebrate finally doing that? And that's page 12, and that is the end. So we have gathered our ideas. We've organized all of our ideas so that they'll fit properly inside a children's picture book. But here are some tips of the trade to help you focus your ideas and focus your writing so you can have the best first draft possible. Now I say that because it's going to be the first draft, the first of many. There's lots of editing, test reading, more editing, more test reading, probably some crumpled paper and frustration, but in the end it's all going to be worth it because your story will eventually be in a book. Whether you get to share it with the world or share it with yourself or share it with your family, you're going to have a story that you've created. So, some tips to help you along the way. Best advice I can give, number 1, if you ignore everything else I say, this is the one to listen to. Just get it on paper. Just get it out. It doesn't matter if while you're getting your ideas out, your character changes age 3 times, or maybe they change from a boy to a girl or a monster. It doesn't matter. You can go back and edit that later. Don't look or wait to write your sentence until you have the perfect word. Just put a word that'll do okay for now, and maybe put a little star or put it in brackets. And you'll know to come back to that because you know, oh, that's a word I didn't like. I'll come back to that. Just get it on paper. Don't slow yourself down by trying to make it perfect the first time. It rarely will be. Now, when we're dealing with putting the children's picture book together, there's some very specific ones that I want to talk about, where the words on one page, they should really be able to be shown in one image or one scene. Whatever words show up on one page, the page that shows the picture right next to it, or maybe you've decided to put the words on the page with the picture needs to work like a partner to the words. And so you can't talk about his long walk to the park and then have the picture be him at the park swinging on a swing set. The words need to pair with the picture. The picture needs to represent the words. Now, that being said, it's a wonderful trick to use the art in your story to tell more story than the words do. And what I mean by that is you don't need to go into a huge long description about the beautiful mountains in the background and how rusty the swing set was. If you draw some beautiful mountains in the background and show a really broken down rusty swing set, you can save the attempt to put all that detail down and really just get to the meat of your story, to get to the most important parts of your story. Now, getting to those most important parts, you really want to do in a children's picture book about 2 to 6 sentences. 6 is a lot, but 2 to 6 per page. And so when you think about how we organized our ideas and the amount of information that you need to put on each page, 2 to 6 sentences, now you say, oh, I could do that. Wait till you try it. It's a bit of a challenge to explain everything, to give the pictures and ideas that are in your head and to put those on paper and get everybody to know exactly what you mean. It is a bit of a challenge. But remember, you're going to have a children's picture book. Anything that you take out from the word side of your picture book, you'll be able to put into the picture side. And so the pictures and the words work together like a team. So don't worry about editing really important details out that you think are important, because we can put them in the pictures if we need to. So limit yourself when you're writing to 2 to 6 sentences for each page. Now, the other thing that happens a lot is you'll get into writing dialogue. So you have 2 different characters, they want to talk to each other. Sometimes you can get a little out of control, and there's a lot of back and forth, and the whole story ends up being lost in this long character back and forth. Especially in a children's picture book, make those conversations short and make them to the point. Just get to the point. You don't even need the characters to walk into the same room. Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm doing fine. Oh, that looks like a lovely donut. Don't need any of that. They can walk in and speak directly to what the problem is. I was just outside and I found 7 feathers in the garden. Where's the peacock? You can get right to the point at that point for the dialogue and make it very quick that way. It makes it very quick to read and easy, and then we stay on topic. If you go too far, you end up losing your audience a little bit. Now, what I build into my children's picture books, and a lot of folks do, are repeating phrases or sounds. And doing that, and I'm not saying on every page, but doing it throughout the book 3 or 4 times, lets children learn through multiple readings of the book, learn to expect that repeating phrase or that sound. And it's a great way that if you are presenting your story in a public scenario, like at school or in front of your family, you know that you can train your audience to say the phrase with you or say the sounds with you. And there's nothing better than getting your audience involved in the storytelling as well, because it takes a little bit of the pressure off you and they have an absolute blast and they feel so important being a part of telling your story. Makes for a great time. Now, the other thing we want to think about is the title of your story. The title of your story is something where we definitely don't want to spoiler the end of your story. So we can't call it Gus Guinea Pig Finds the Rainbow. Can't do it. Because it ends up becoming, why would I read that book? I know how it ends. He finds a rainbow. Unless, of course, that's not the end of your story and just finding the rainbows at the beginning. I'm just saying, don't ruin the end of your story with your title. You also don't want a title that is 17 words long. Like, Gus the Guinea Pig learns to climb a tree, float on the air, and jump on a cloud, and finally sees a rainbow. Too long of a title, you won't have any room for the picture on your front page, on your front cover. So make your title something short, something interesting. Always fun to have an interesting sounding word, or to use alliteration. Alliteration is when all the words in the phrase start with the same letter, and that can make it very, very interesting. The other one I like as well is when my title is a play on words, such as my first book, Peanut Butter and Dragon. Everyone knows peanut butter and jam, or peanut butter and jelly. That's a regular phrase that everyone hears a fair bit, and they immediately think of sandwiches and yum, yum, yum. But peanut butter and dragon, it sticks in their head a little easier because of that phrase. It's just a play on words. And so what is my story about? It's about a peanut butter dragon, or is it peanut butter and a dragon? What's the dragon doing with the peanut butter? Is he eating all the peanut butter? Is there no peanut butter left for us? Questions get raised, people want to read. And that's a great way to create a title as well. Those are some tips of the trade. Adding art to your story. This was the part of becoming a children's picture book author that I was most self-conscious about. In my particular scenario, I independently published my books, and at the end of the day, you don't know if you're going to be successful, if you're going to make any money at all. It's just you're trying. And one of the things that's very difficult to do when you are just trying and not sure how it's going to turn out is to convince your artist friends to do some work for you and not know if they're going to make money with you. So I decided to figure out a way to do the art on my own. And my way of doing it was through photography, working with a computer program called Photoshop, and applying a number of different filters to the photographs, and also doing collage work. So taking lots of photographs, cutting out pieces of those photographs, and pasting and gluing them together, doing it digitally on the computer. And taking photographs, collaging them together, putting the filters over top of them, all within the Adobe Photoshop program on the computer, let me create the images for my books. Now, that's not going to work for everybody. Not everybody has a computer. Not everybody has the savvy or the ability to get to know the program and use it properly. You can try, and I welcome your efforts to do so. I wasn't self-taught myself, and I'm doing okay, I think. So for you, you got to do what works best for you and what look you like best for art that shows up in picture books. And that's kind of where you should start, is what look do you like best? When you're reading a picture book, what kind of art is your favorite to see? And see if there's a way that you can teach yourself to create art similar to that. Now, sometimes that means taking some classes and learning and practicing your art and becoming a fantastic illustrator. Good for you if you can do that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't have the desire to do that. I knew I was pretty good with Photoshop, and I knew I was good with photography, and we found a way to do that. But you could also, maybe you're a fantastic painter. You could paint your scenes, and then you would scan them into the computer and be able to get them into your document and get them into your book. Now, I've also seen situations where I run Start a Story workshop, and oftentimes I hear back from families or children who have been a part of the workshops that have gotten the limited edition books. Not all my workshops get the limited edition book, but some of them do. And what we do is we have the author photo show up on the back, the cover art gets done. You can actually see one up over my shoulder. And on the inside of the book, you get the words written all the way throughout, like just like the story they created during the workshop, but we leave the art pages blank. And so I have had families come and see me after or send me an email and show me their work when they finish the art, because we want the children's creativity to continue. And I've seen paintings taped in. I've seen Lego designs for each page, take a photograph, and the photograph was taped in, and that created their imaging for the books. I've seen clay, photographs of clay cut and paste and put into the pages of the books. Some really fantastic stuff from many different mediums. Now, the other way you could do it, we could do paper craft. I've never seen anyone do it, but cutting different shapes and images out of construction paper and gluing them in. I'd love to see somebody do that someday. And also stamping. Remember, when I was in elementary school, we had this art project where we cut potatoes and we cut different shapes and images into the potato, and we'd use acrylic paint and we'd stamp the image over and over again onto another page, onto a canvas. And it was a lot of fun, but there's no reason you couldn't use that style as well to create art for your books. Now, the wonderful thing about picture books, and I mentioned this earlier as well, is the art allows you to give more detail than your words sometimes have the space to provide. So sometimes you're trying to get down the words just to get down to the meat, get down to the very most important part of your story. But you as a writer, as a creator of worlds, you had so much more to tell people about what is happening in your story. And sometimes you can sneak a few of those details into the art to convey your message, to tell your story in an even larger way with the art in your story. The other thing you may want to do as well is take a look of examples of books that do this. And one of the examples I'd love to give is the Little Critters series of books. And my favorite part about the art in those stories is that it's always told from the perspective of the little critter, the boy of this family. And he will often tell of his great exploits where he's doing a super good job helping out, or he's in charge, or he's decided to, make breakfast and he did a really good job. But the pictures in the book are telling a completely different story and showing the reality of what's actually happening. And you can compare, his version is a little bit different, and it's really entertaining, and I think it entertains both the adults that are reading it and the children as well. So that's a neat thing to look for as well. So that is adding art to your picture book. No matter what medium you want to work in, you can get it into your picture book by taking a photograph and getting it in digitally to your document so that you can have, whether you're working in clay or Lego or plasticine or cardboard, whatever you decide your art form is, maybe you work in beads, I don't know, you can get it into your book no matter how you do it by taking a picture or scanning it into the computer, and that's a great way to embrace telling your story in an additional way. So that's Build a Book. We've taken your ideas from a beginning, an ending, and following the rule of three, our 3 parts for our middle. We created a story. We gathered all those ideas. Then we organized them into our little booklet, and we were able to get an understanding of how to take all those ideas and divide them up throughout a children's picture book. And then we were able to talk about what kind of different styles of art we might be able to add into that book that you're creating. If you get a chance and you do create a story, whether it's with art or without, please feel free with your parents, with your teachers, to visit timholmes.com, click on the contact page, and share your completed stories with me. I'd love to see them, and I'd love to share them with as many people as possible. Guys, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and happy creating.